Oh, okay. So we don't have to punch the button or not? We will call the subcommittee on policies and procedures to order. If you would, please call the roll. Or if each attendee would identify themselves to verbalize their attendance, that would be great.
Leslie Nesmith, present.
Ryan Haney, present.
Ray Douglas, present.
And Stephen Buck, present as well. If you would, please join me in a pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In accordance with requirements, notice of this meeting was properly posted on August the 12th, 2022, so we are in compliance with the requirements for the meeting. At this point on the agenda is allowed for public input. Has any public input been sought? Being no request for public input, we will move to agenda item number 2, discussion and possible action to approve the meeting minutes of May 25th, 2022. Is there any discussion or questions or corrections?
Nope.
I'll move to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
Do you want these on the machines or are you noting them? If you could, please make sure you. For the sake of expediency, I went ahead and placed the second on the motion so that we can continue to conduct business. Any discussion on the minutes? Being none, I am prepared to take a vote. If you would, please indicate on your machine a vote of yes, no, or abstain.
Yes.
With a vote of 3 yeses, 0 noes, and 1 abstention, the minutes are approved. At this point, we will move to the next action item on the agenda, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the purposes and functions of the Oklahoma Policies and Procedures Subcommittee of the Criminal Justice Authority Advisory Board, including the development of an OCDC, which is Oklahoma County Detention Center, policy and procedural standards based on those established by relevant entities such as the American Corrections Association. And if I could, the reason I asked for this to be on the agenda to articulate is in our work, it will be incumbent upon us to review both the current standards and practices, but also other information that might be available in the public domain that could help us in crafting our response for the trust. Those could be from an accrediting body like the American Corrections Association, commonly known as the ACA. There are other credentialing bodies, and there are other like institutions which we might want to explore what they have publicly available. So in order for us to start our path on the work we will be doing, I thought it important to have an action item to catalog those pieces of information that might inform us for subsequent meetings. So that's the purpose of this agenda item. I have a few items in mind, but I thought we would bring it to the floor so that we can publicly discuss those and choose to pursue those.
You know, that sounds good to me. When I took my tour of the jail about a month and a half ago, I suppose it was, I was given a flash drive with the policies and procedures they use, and I will send that to Lynn so she can distribute that to everybody so that I don't risk being in violation of the Open Meetings Act. But one of the things that was told to me while I was on the tour was that the policies and procedures basically change on a regular basis. I don't see how we can be an effective advising body, or for that matter, the jail trust can oversee an organization whose policies and procedures change all the time. So, I mean, I think it might be helpful for our next meeting, in addition to what you've talked about here, for Mr. Williams to come in and basically describe for us why that is. I was also, and I can't remember, there's a number of different accrediting agencies, and I think the American Corrections Association is kind of like a gold standard, as I recall. And that's a goal. I'm told that that's a goal of the jail to get to that point, but they've not even reached, what we might call like a floor level. So, perhaps, I mean, I didn't realize when I signed on to this, or when I agreed to serve on these committees or these subcommittees, that this was like a 2-year thing. But given the time that we have, maybe it makes sense to, again, ask Mr. Williams to come talk to us about sort of like how they perceive they're moving towards a minimum threshold accreditation. And again, I forget what the accrediting body was there, and it may not even be an accrediting body. And just sort of take those a step at a time, with ACA accreditation being, a not immediately attainable goal, but somewhere further down the line.
Well, Mr. President, I was thinking that as we were drafting the policies and procedures, not only for what could be effective now, but to develop or suggest best practices to where we need to get to, not just what they're doing. And so we're not necessarily redirecting what's going on now, but directing toward what we need to get to. And those are the things that I think that we should submit.
I appreciate the thought. I think one thing that I want to be cognizant of is it's not, I want to stay away from wordsmithing policies and procedures personally. We don't do this every day professionally, at least I don't. I shouldn't speak for everybody. But I do appreciate your point that we can help identify aspirational steps to help us fall into line with those accrediting bodies that can help us vet through where we would aspire to be for our engagement of detainees as they come through this period. So I appreciate that, but it's not my expectation to wordsmith through the entire documents. I think we help identify those aspirational goals.
Yeah, and I would just add, find places where, given the existing policies and procedures, they're not even meeting those, right? I mean, I think there's probably a number of those, and finding out. And again, I think this is where Mr. Williams can help us, and also talking to people who are on the inside at a lower level, be that detainees or employees. What are the sort of priorities? I mean, let's just say, for sake of argument, there were 10 areas that are lacking. Like, which are the most most in need of being fixed, and then getting input from the public and other experts on, okay, well, 1, 2, and 3. What are some things that we can do to improve those?
Ryan, you said that you have a thumb drive with the current policy and procedure manual on it. Is that what is on it?
It has 4 documents, and I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what they all are. But yes, my understanding is one of them is a policies and procedures. But I was told that basically in the next couple of days after it was given to me, that it would likely be obsolete because they're basically constantly changing. Which,
Oh, wow.
whether that's a good thing or not, I can't speak to. But it doesn't sound good to me.
Well, no, I know in a lot of industries, their policy and procedure or the standard operating procedures, the SOP does evolve. And so often it's based on the tools that you have. And so hopefully as the infrastructure improves, a lot of those things will also improve. And so again, I think as what we aspire to be, not necessarily what they're capable of doing now. And it will change. SOPs, not necessarily a wholesale change, but they're revisions as we learn new things, or something changes, or a law changes. So there are often revisions to SOPs, and been in industries where they've had those, you see many revisions to those.
Just in terms of order, if we remember to engage the request to
Oh,
speak
I'm
button.
sorry.
No. Just I know we're a small group, and I like being conversational, but that would be helpful. One thing I would add, and this is very much an articulation of something I have done previously in terms of my professional capacities, is Ryan, you were right on in vetting any documents that are incoming with Lynn. Periodically in policies and procedures, there will be information about how you respond to certain threats in certain mechanisms that are unique to the operational integrity for both the individuals serving in our facilities as well as those being served there. And those elements need to be vetted to make sure that they are available for public scrutiny, because in those cases, people's safety could be compromised if certain elements were discussed. So your point is spot on. That information is helpful, but we definitely need to use counsel to pre-review those to make sure that we're maintaining operational safety. Any other conversation on the subject matter? I have made a couple of notes, most specifically that is the next step that we would like to invite Administrator Director Williams to appear at our next subcommittee to wade through some of this conversation. If that is the desires of the committee, I would certainly entertain a motion to that effect.
I move. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. I'm sorry. So it has been properly moved and seconded. That is our next step for our next meeting. We would like for Director Williams to come and brief us on policy and procedure development and the manner in which those are changed. Is that a fair recollection of the motion?
Yes, and I would also like to, I'd also like to find out what all the policy and procedures impact, if that makes sense. I know in my world, performance reviews, audits, inspections, all of that hinge on what the policy and procedure manual, whatever the organization refers to it as, is what is impacted by that. I would be interested in knowing how or if performance reviews are being done, and if so, how are they referencing a manual that changes frequently?
So this is an amendment to the motion as I recaptured it. No, I want to make sure I'm understanding that you would like, beyond what I articulated, you would also like to include
what it impacts as well. Yes.
Would you accept that amendment and
Yes.
continue your second? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. With that, we will move to a vote. If you would both indicate your preference on the motion before you, as well as verbally articulate your vote, that would be helpful.
Yes, for me.
Yep, for me.
Yes for me.
Yes as well. By vote of 4-0, the motion passes. Thank you for that discussion. Our next item on the agenda, item number 4, is discussion and possible action regarding the appointment of additional members to the subcommittee, qualifications, and manner of timing of appointment. As you will recall, this is an item that flowed down from the larger committee that we all serve on, to where each subcommittee was allowed to have its own structure to invite outside individuals to serve on the subcommittee, as long as certain representation requirements were preserved for the particular subcommittee. So with that, I open the floor to any suggestions. I would also add that this item will likely remain on future agendas so that we can navigate our process as we see best fit. So with that, I'm happy to entertain any discussion.
Okay. I did the request to speak as well.
Thank you.
So I just want to keep a name in front of us. So we added to another committee, Marquise Miller, who is a pastor. One of the the people that I think would be very helpful on either this committee or on the one that follows this. So this is the what you guys have one after this. The operations. Stacy Coe, and she is the one who is, she's a business owner. She is a plumbing contractor. She did serve some time in prison. She served 7 years. She is on the Construction Industries Board, and she is a plumbing inspector for Oklahoma. So she's very qualified. I think with the undertaking of a new prison and some of the or jail, rather, I apologize, and some of the issues that we find in the current jail, I think that her voice would be important to have, not only because she's a female plumbing contractor who served time in prison, but she also happens to have other community organizations that she's involved with, that she volunteers with, that I think could also be an important connection as well. So I don't know if you guys have seen this. I've shared it with the other couple of the other committees. I have some information on her if you'd like to see it. I don't know that this is the appropriate committee. It might be the next one, but I wanted to make sure I keep her name in front of you guys. I think that she could be invaluable to one of these, invaluable to one of these committees.
Is there any other discussion on the subject matter? I'll take a moment, and as I look at the agenda item, this gives us the opportunity to have a process by which we might consider candidates such as Stacy. And I appreciate you have been an advocate of the value that she brings from several meetings ago. So thank you for that. And I think her lived experience would be extraordinarily insightful for us. Is there a thought the committee might have about how we might include a quote-unquote nominating process for individuals? I'm a process person, and I would like to know how we're going to do it so that another interested party could have a similar process if they so desired. For this information to the committee, how did the other committee go about determining how to add members? That might be helpful. I haven't read those minutes.
So we discussed, just like this, just those of us who had someone that they would like to add to the committee, and then we took votes on them individually, and then they were added to the committee. So that's how we did it the last one. And what I would like to say too is, I feel like what she has to offer is so important, but I don't want to get her on the wrong committee. Mm-hmm. You know. So if a better place for Stacy Coe would be, like I said, on the other committee, I think that it would just be great to have her. But as far as how to go about it, we just took a vote. Someone made a motion, we discussed it, people asked questions, and then we took a vote.
Would you be comfortable reaching out to Stacy and perhaps asking her to attend our next meeting?
Sure.
At that point, we should have content that we begin
Sure.
to pull through. That may either get her very excited about the input she might have, or she might say, this one's not for me. So Is that a reasonable approach in your mind?
Yeah. I could definitely do that. I could ask her to attend the next meeting, and then she could be here and answer any questions. And if there's anything that you would like me to maybe ask her to supply in advance of that, I could do that too if it would be needed, any qualifications or anything like that. But otherwise, she could just attend next time, and we could ask questions in person.
Awesome. I don't know that attendance at a public meeting requires a motion, so unless there's a forthcoming motion on this subject matter, is there any further discussion on the item at hand?
Well, only that, before too much time passes, is that something we might be willing to vote on next time? And basically we could do the same thing, and as we add other people or up until the threshold. I don't think we need to have like a whole, like if we're going to add 2 people, I don't think we need to have both of them. I think we can add one at a time. And
My personal, as sitting in the chair, is that I would concur with that approach forward. It, it's hard to ask somebody to serve on something that they don't have direct knowledge of, but if she sees how we work and still wishes to continue, I would be more than happy to vet an individual like that.
And she also serves on a construction industry board as well that functions much the same way.
I will, unless there's an objection from the committee, ask Lynn to circulate that biographical information before our next meeting. Okay. Would that require a motion? Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on item number 4? With that, we will move to item number 5, which is an announcement of our next scheduled special meeting, currently scheduled for Wednesday, November the 16th at 2:15 p.m. If we get a good flow of information coming in and Mr. Williams available, since we are operating under special meetings, we could convene earlier. And if you would leave that to the discretion of the chair, I will take note of such. That's your next scheduled special meeting. I will also take this moment for those who may be watching this stream to remind you that immediately following this meeting, we convene the Operations Subcommittee. It is not always anticipated these meetings will be short in duration, but out of a courtesy to those who attend our meetings and out of the 3 of us that serve on the next committee, that's why they are booked so closely with each other. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Looks like somebody already moved. I'm happy to second it.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I didn't say it aloud.
All right, so the motion has been properly moved and seconded for adjournment. If we would call the roll on the adjournment motion.
Leslie Nesmith, aye.
Ryan Haney, yes.
Stephen Buck, yes.
Ray Douglas, yes.
By vote of 4-0, we are adjourned.
I just pushed mine.
Well, that was
All right, this meeting of the Operations Subcommittee is called to order. If you'll just state your name and whether you're here. I'm Ryan Haney, I'm here.
Ray Douglas here.
Stephen Buck, present.
All right, we're all here, and because we love the troops, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance again.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on the agenda, or I guess I have to say that the meeting was properly posted on August 12th, 2022. The first item on the agenda is public comment. I've not received any notice of public comment, and nobody's here, so we will move on to agenda item number 2. Discussion and possible action to approve the meeting minutes of May 25th, 2022. Will there be any discussion? Mr. Buck has moved to accept the minutes. I will second. Do you want us to voice vote and iPad vote?
Voice vote when you motion or second, and then use your buttons for that.
You got it.
Except for Mr. Douglas over here. Are you a yes?
I'm a yes.
We'll fix your iPad.
Okay, motion carries. Minutes were adopted. Agenda item number 3 is discussion and possible action regarding the purposes and functions of the Oklahoma Operations Subcommittee of the County Criminal Justice Authority Citizens Advisory Board. I have a few thoughts on this, and then I'll open it up for more discussion. Operations, to me, is very similar to policy and procedures. The subcommittee that we just adjourned but I do understand the distinction that operations is probably talking about things like plumbing and whether the elevators are working and whether the body scan machine is doing its job or something along those lines. Having said that, it seems to me that, again, I don't really know what kind of recommendations we should be making unless we have a good idea of what's going on. Like I said, I did tour the jail about a month and a half ago. Operationally, it seems like things are going much better than they have in the past. There's no raw sewage sitting in the basement. Plumbing seems to be working the way it is. The elevators are working better now that they're not filled with wastewater. And I don't think that operations are what gives people in our community. I don't think it's what keeps people in our community up at night. I think policies and procedures and things like that are what people are worried about. That said, I'm totally open to where we want this subcommittee to go. And I don't have strong opinions one way or the other. So with that, I'll open it up to further discussion. So I don't show that it says that you requested to speak. So go ahead.
I appreciate the question very much, and I think there is a significant amount of overlap, and I have not raised this with Chairman Steele of the full cab, but as I reflect on the conversations of the last meeting of the full committee, which was held just a week ago, and I think about the process of doing focus groups, if you will, between current detainees, the subcommittee labeled as operations, I mean, those will identify operational issues in a very big way. And if there is a desire for this group to continue to meet, perhaps it's review of those types of anecdotal operational details that may give us a substance of work. That said, I'm not I'm not emotionally wrapped into keeping two separate committee meetings back to back on my agenda. So I don't feel strongly they should be combined, but if it's going to exist, that might be one meaningful way to have a specific subset of information that the committee's evaluating.
Mr. Chairperson, I agree with you that the operations, in my view, is more a facilities type issue, and whether or not it is something that the public is very, very interested in is very important for everything else. One of the, when I toured, it's not recently, but when I toured the jail, one of the issues that I had was that I think that they were in violation of all kinds of OSHA things for the employees, not, let alone what was going on with the inmates. And so I think that this committee should look at those things and make recommendations to make sure, and as you, Mr. Buck has said, that, that as we get reports and hear things, to be able to make recommendations. I don't know if we can, but I don't know if we need to meet as frequently as we have it set. But I think the work that this subcommittee could do is important for the overall health and safety of employees and detainees in the jail.
Yeah, I appreciate both those comments, and I agree with each of them. Without public comment, I'm sort of in my mind the real utility of a cab is to receive public comment and then make recommendations. But for whatever reason, and I don't know the reason, it might be that our meetings are terribly uninteresting, but we're not getting a lot of public comment. So I don't know if maybe there's some action we could take to sort of publicize that we're doing this and get public comment that way. But I also don't know if I think there's going to be a separate cab for the construction of the new jail. So I don't see us as having any real input on that, although that would be cool. But I do agree. I think as the focus groups as those focus groups take place and concerns are brought forth to the full Citizens Advisory Board, those are certainly things that the three of us should listen for, take note of, and seek to address.
And then also, a lot of our work beyond the meeting is actually seeing, doing regular tours with Director Williams and seeing what's going on to be able to bring back even our first-hand reports of what we see. I mean, I know that we're supposed to have the new facility, but even between then, I mean, I was really, when I toured, and I know it's much better now, but I was really concerned about the employees in their working environment as well as the detainees, because it was horrible. And so we don't ever want it to get to that point that they're forced to have to do workarounds and work in those deplorable conditions or be detained in those deplorable conditions on both sides.
I agree. I'm wondering if in an effort to not have to be so reliant on things just sort of organically, issues organically coming about, do either one of you know, I'm thinking, Pastor Douglas, with your discussion of OSHA, do you happen to know maybe someone who works in that field who could go who would be willing, because this is a big ask, to go do their own tour and then come to our subcommittee and talk about these are 5 areas that I saw, which would then give us time to go to Director Williams and say, hey, here are some things that our someone who presented to our subcommittee saw that we'd like to have addressed. Do either of you have any ideas with respect to that?
I think that's a good idea. I don't know of anyone offhand, but I'm sure that that would be easy to find someone that would and give us that report.
Okay. I mean, I'm certainly in the in between now and our next meeting, I'm certainly happy to make some calls or reach out to a few people, but that's otherwise that's all I really know to do. I don't think anything we've discussed yet would require a motion. Mr. Buck?
One more quick thought for the spirit of this conversation. One more quick thought is the focus groups are doing a very good job of identifying individuals who may currently be detained and what their experiences are. As part of our work, we could work with Chairman Steele and his organization for people who have previously experienced detention to hear what their experiences might be. So I think there's ample opportunity to help inform what we're thinking, and I think lived experience voice will be very helpful in that.
Agreed. Any further discussion on that? Okay. Agenda item number 4, announcement. The next scheduled meeting of the Operations Subcommittee for the Oklahoma County Criminal Justice Authority in 2022 is Wednesday, November 16th, 2022 at 2:30, basically immediately following the policy and procedures. I think we can go ahead and keep that. Pastor Douglas, I agree with you. There's a chance that we probably don't need to meet as often, depending on what the next 3 months hold, but we'll see. Before we adjourn, or wait, am I supposed to ask for discussion on the next meeting? Or we just talk about it? Cool. All right. Well, that's been announced. Before we adjourn, we do have a request for public comment. My understanding is that we probably should vote on whether to have this out of order because it does present some sort of precedent. That said, I think the most important thing that the CAB does or the subcommittee does is hear public comment. So I'm certainly willing to hear that, and I would move that we go ahead and hear public comment now.
I second that.
I don't see the move button, but sorry. We have a motion and a second, and now we'll vote. And I think I got out and got back in, and I think that's why my stuff's not working, so I will vote yes. These iPads are like, you just brush up against them and it does stuff that... Okay, since the ayes have it, we will permit Mr. Romani to come up, and he will be given 3 minutes. Mr. Romani.
Good afternoon, gentlemen and ladies. Mr. Ray Douglas, I admirably liked your comment about eyes, and Mr. Buck, you alluded to it, and Mr. Hain, you concluded it. So what much I have to say in this 3 minutes, y'all have already said. But you need to have eyes and ears, and I'm a strong component and opponent for that all the time. I'm always advocating for that. It's one of my fields that I study with my own hand experience, being a life coach and a peer recovery support specialist. And if I've seen this is the problem that I've had so far with dealing with these subcommittees, not necessarily subcommittees, but the jail trust. This is the problem that I've seen with it, that people that have lived experience, we do a lot of surface talk about it. And I've heard all three of y'all kind of alluded to what I had to say today. It's a whole bunch of talk. But I don't want to get too biblical here and too spiritual, but all through our scriptures, you have men and women that God picked them, and they had horrible situations that the carnal mind or the secular mind would probably say, you're not fit. You know, they want to look for everybody but David until they just kept going and going and going. And then they said, what can come from Nazareth? What good can come? Because we're the bourgeoisies up in Jerusalem. He don't have anything to say. That is one of the major problems. I toured the jail here recently twice with Anastasia Pittman. And I was re-looking at a video the day after I came up here. I was here on a second, but the first they had a big meeting, and I seen a lady that has high rank over there at the jail was extremely condescending when somebody like me who had been in the jail was telling them how the doors operated, and I was being neutral, talking about how they could better things coming from a person with lived experience. I know how we used to pop those doors. You know, if I didn't like you and we had one and we went back and forth and talking, we through talking about it, let's come out here, we're going to pop our door after dinner and we're going to get one. That means to see each other in confrontation. So, and I was trying to explain that to the people that took it. I was all pastors. I was the only one, myself and an Asian lady that had been in those confinements. And we were shut down by that same lady. And I know that, I'm not going to say his name, but we know that we have people that speak public comment and are quite adamant, would you say? And the lady was trying to shoot him down and wouldn't let him talk, which it wasn't his time to talk. But her belligerent and arrogant behavior was offensive. So not being braggadatory, and I'll get off here because I have another place to be and I've been on my 3 minutes. But just recently, I had the shared experience of meeting man after man after man that I helped get out of gangs. And those people gravitate towards somebody like me. So we need to go more past than doing the superficial rhetoric. Oh, Derwin Romani and so and so and so and so, y'all have lived experience. Please, we like you, but we still go back to that same pompous arrogance that I know best. I am educated. I am the one that is anointed that should help with these people. So everything that you three said, it was what I decided to come up here and,
Thank you,
and
Mr.
drop
Romani.
the line for today. Thank you.
Can I ask questions of him even though his time is up? Is that allowed? Okay. I hope I'm not setting some crazy precedent, but anyhow. So thank you for your public comment. Is there something specific that you believe our operations subcommittee should be looking at with respect to the operations of the jail? And as certainly you're welcome to have your own interpretation of what encompasses operations. In our mind, that's sort of the facility. So you mentioned doors. I know that that's been brought up to the main cab before, but is there anything other than doors, or do you want to go more in depth quickly about the doors?
You addressed it. Mr. Buck hit it by policy, and Mr. Douglas hit it in a secular way. People such as myself, not just tooting the horn, and not just myself, those are your eyes and ears that can be in there that see the problems and help you with the problems. I had said something like this in public comments before the man got killed, not too long ago. When the police came in and killed the man, somebody that can be in there as a PRSS and a mentor and a life coach that knows every one of their OGs, your water's not working, the stools is not working, you're not getting hot food. You need to go past Mr. Williams and all these people coming up here telling you everything is fine and dandy, because we still hear that it's not fine and dandy and people are still dying. So that's one of your answers. You got to not just give lip service, but actually have people like myself actively involved in the process. They even fought. I think I'm supposed to be on one of the advisory subcommittees sometime or another, right? They actually fought against me being on there. It was other people that didn't think I should have been on there, and Chris still told him, the boy checks he checks every box.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate that comment. I think the issue that I've had is that people don't want to come forth and be specific.
Right.
So, even just now, I didn't get anything specific that we should look at.
Specifically, you should have men and women that with lived experience, some kind of way on the payroll, some kind of way besides just advice, actually physically, I think Mr. Buck said it, actually physically in there. You said it. Actually physically in there, not just with lip service, and when we can help. Example, people need to get out for rent. People need to have real food. We keep spraying the jail, but no, the bed bug situation is still horrible. Keep coming up giving these reports. Oh, it's getting better. It's getting better. I contact with these people all the time. I'm in the hood all the time. I go to every gang set and visit with them in an organization. There's two of us. The Mexican has one called Banging for Jesus, and mine is called Mobbing for Christ. We're in the hoods talking to these people all the time. So these people are not lying or making up stories. Does that make sense? That's a specific one. Is that specific enough?
Well, it doesn't. I understand your concern that we need to go deeper than just paying lip service to asking,
Right.
but we need them to come forward with actual specific things that they'd like for us to take a look at.
I will help you in that area that you asked.
Awesome.
The original question when you said more people need to know about these meetings and come up and speak, I will let more people know that they need to be here. Not gonna say this over the mic, but I just did it with a political thing. Quit talking about it and help me go out and walk and knock on some doors. Quit talking about it on social media. Get out and help me walk, knock on some doors. So
Thank you,
yeah.
Mr. Romani.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
All right, with that, the fifth item is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Or do we need to discuss? I don't hear
Motion
any
to adjourn.
discussion. I'll
I
second.
second that motion. Ray Douglas in favor?
Yes.
Yes.